Welcome to Pop and Play, the podcast all about play in its many silly, serious, and powerful forms. I'm Haeny
And I'm Nathan Holbert. And in this season, we are talking all about young children's media. How do you make it? Why does it matter? What does participation look like? And all its challenges and limitations.
And today, we're talking with Emily Reardon and Michael Preston from Sesame Street and the Joan Ganz Cooney Center.
I'm very excited about this conversation. Two brilliant, thoughtful designers and scholars, and Michael Preston, a friend of ours that we've had a chance to work with over the years. But before we dive into our guests, I think there's an important question I need to ask you.
Yes,
What is your favorite Sesame Street Muppet?
Very easy. I go with the Count. And the reason why I like the Count is, I love the Count's fashion sense.
Oh, yeah.
Like excellent cape, great eyebrows. Yeah, purple. I like purple as a color.
Yeah,
I like
color.
And I spent a lot of time as a kid and as an adult trying to perfect the Count voice, so. One.
Two.
Yeah. Anyway, so just wanted to do that somewhere in life where other people actually hear and listen to me. So there you go.
Perfect.
The Count
Perfect.
rules.
Nailed
How about
it.
you?
I think it's a toss-up for me between Grover and Cookie Monster.
Obvious.
I know, I'm very basic. I mean, when I was little, Cookie Monster was my favorite because I liked cookies, and Cookie was the silliest and craziest.
So you just did a literal translation.
It's essentially like, that's me. But I also just I like how weird Grover is. I think he's just a kind of an oddball. He's sweet, he's kind, but he's just a weirdo, and I love that. So probably my favorite.
Yeah, Grover is very lovable.
Did you watch a lot of Sesame Street when you were growing up?
So I did. I actually just watched a lot of TV. I like to say that TV raised me, basically. So I watched basically everything when I was growing up. And partly it's because my mom worked at nights. She slept during the day. My dad went to work really early in the morning. He came back right before dinner time, basically. And so I had this wide swath of time where nobody was really monitoring my movements. And so I would watch Sesame Street and the cadre of things that came after that, like Electric Company and 3-2-1 Contact and all of that. And it was just a general stream of things that I watched, and then it would move into game shows and soap operas, and basically
watching
that
Price
was
is Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I definitely watched a lot of Sesame Street. How about you? Did you?
Yeah, I mean, when I was little, I definitely remember watching it, and I think I have this memory in my head for some reason of my mom, who when I was really little would stay home just for a year or two. I remember. And her ironing or something, and me on the floor watching Sesame Street.
Oh, that's
right?
nice. Yeah, I didn't really watch it with other people, but you watched it with your mother?
I think so. I mean, so this is interesting because there's sort of this famous area of research that emerged from the Joan Ganz Cooney Center, which is, kind of the research arm of Sesame Street, that talked about this idea called co-viewing, which was that when you make children's media, you're not necessarily just making it for one child and one screen. You're making it for people to watch and engage with the media together, right? So, it's not just passive, it's also kind of the conversation that happens, on the couch or in the room while you're watching. Obviously, this came out in a time where
TV was the central place.
Yeah, the way people consume media was very different than it was today. But I mean, I think I was watching it with my mom. I don't know.
Yeah, because I think back in the day, television was basically the hub of family life, right? And it wasn't something that you all go in your separate rooms and iPads and just watch your own thing, right? You kind of watch it and come together around it.
Yeah.
And so I think that co-viewing thing where parents and children are actually watching something together was sort of a big thing that moved and mobilized children's media, right? Or just media in general.
Yeah.
Right? And I think about how they used to have all those primetime shows where it was something that adults and kids can kind of come together and watch.
Yeah.
Right?
And there still is that, right? There's definitely stuff that my kids and I all watch together, and my wife and I and all. But there's a larger range of kinds of ways we can engage and experience media.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we need our experts, though. Really,
I think we do need our experts. So I think today, luckily, we have Emily and Michael here to talk about that. And I think to specifically talk about how we've moved, how digital tools and technology has kind of shifted what media looks like, right, for kids and for families.
Yeah.
So we have Emily Reardon with us, who is the Emmy Award-winning user experience designer, specializing in emergent technologies for playful learning at Sesame Workshop. She's also an adjunct professor at NYU's Graduate School of Education. More importantly, though, she is a Virginia Woolf and cheese fondue enthusiast.
Wow.
Never thought you would say those two things in one sentence, but now it's done.
We also have Michael Preston, who's Senior Vice President and Executive Director of the Joan Ganz Cooney Center, who also works at the intersection of tech, media, and children's learning. He is an alum of this here's Teachers College.
Woo!
He leads innovation in educational technology that centers the well-being, agency, and learning of young people. And important to his work are issues of access, equity, and social responsibility in media and technology design. He has been a longtime friend and collaborator for our kind of play initiatives throughout the city. So we're really excited to have him here and Emily here as well.
Great, let's get to it. Welcome, everybody. We're very excited to have two special friends and guests and also some Muppets on the table with us. Today we have Emily Reardon.
Hi.
Hi. Tell us your favorite Muppet.
I think it's Cookie Monster.
Ooh.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Solid choice.
That's an excellent choice.
Yeah.
When I was put on the spot a bit ago about my favorite, I really struggled between Grover and Cookie Monster.
He's exuberant, and his grammatical patterns and his VO lines are all awesome.
Yeah.
It's just a winner.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I love that he's unapologetically chaotic and messy.
Me
It's
too.
great. Yes.
Yeah, very
A friend
straightforward.
to all, too.
A friend to all. And we also have Michael Preston with us.
Hi.
Hi. Tell us your favorite Muppet.
That's such a hard choice. It's like which of your kids is your
Yes.
favorite? It's hard to say.
But you know you all have it.
Yeah, we just try not to talk about it. I mean, I am a Grover fan. Having been born in a certain era, like
Yeah.
Grover's the man. But I had a Bert puppet as a kid. I still have
really?
actually. Hand puppet. Very plasticky head, hard to move the mouth.
Yeah.
Totally
But
had the same
very
one.
very sweaty to have your hand in there. But
Yeah.
he was my Bert.
I like that.
Yeah. I heard actually somebody say that there was some research with kids and they wanted to know like whether the Muppets were kids or adults, and they said that there were two Muppets that were adults. Do you know which two?
Oh,
Oh, interesting.
Bert.
Ernie and Bert.
No. It was Grover and Cookie
Bird? Oh.
What?
Wow.
because they had jobs.
Oh.
Well, we're super excited to have you both here to talk about children's media and your work in it. Before we get started on the hard questions, we like to start with a game to just kind of get us into the spirit here. And so we've come up with a game where we are going to be guessing the Sesame Street song. Okay. So I'm going to read some lyrics. And your task is, and you can discuss together. If you just know, you're welcome to shout it out. We're all winners here, so that we're not going to be keeping track of points. But if you've got it, name the song and tell us who sings it. Okay, so I will try to start a little on the easy side here. I have here a sneaker that's tattered and worn. It's
love
all full of
trash.
holes and the laces are torn.
Oh my God. Emily just got that right away.
How would you not know that?
I mean, we do have a ringer here. So
I had a feeling.
Yeah.
I tried to start easy.
It literally describes trash in the first word.
That's true.
that's
true.
true.
This might be too easy. We'll find out. Okay. Next song. Yes, I travel under the sea, but I don't think I'd like to live there. I may stay for a
I don't want
day.
to live on the moon.
Oh my God.
How are
These
you not
people
doing
are
this? Are
so
you just giving?
good at
You're giving me
this.
I'm
space.
just a little slow.
Good thing we don't have a buzzer. Just be buzzing in
It's
immediately.
God.
Yeah.
Immediately.
We're probably like expert level.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah, you made this
These
too
are too
easy.
easy. These are too easy. Okay, the next one. The mood exciting, the music loud, me just a part of that happy crowd. Me feet go crazy across the floor, but something made my sweetie not be there no more.
Me left me cookie at the disco.
Oh,
Oh my
Cookie
God,
Monster.
that's deep. I don't know that one.
Nailed it.
I mean, with the grammar, it was obvious
had
he
to-
was singing, but
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I was hoping, since you're a big Cookie Monster fan.
I know. I was giving it a little time because there's a couple other weird ones that he sings that are I don't know, I needed the extra data to fork off.
That was too easy. Too easy.
It was too easy because Emily here is a pro. Well, thank you for playing that with us. That
It was fun
really
to start
fun.
out playing a game.
Yeah, it was really, really fun. Okay, so we're going to start. So part of what we're kind of talking about, and we've been talking to kids and designers and writers and researchers just about media and play and children and their well-being. And so we thought, what two better people to come in and talk to us about that than you two, who have done a lot of things around children's media and well-being and play. So we wanted to start off by just asking you to kind of reach into the recesses of your own childhood and just talk about what you used to watch when you were a kid. And maybe that does include Sesame Street. So
I did watch Sesame growing up.
yeah.
And I actually been thinking about this one a lot because when you have kids, you're kind of like, well, what would they be missing?
Yeah.
And the things, the two that I really, or a direction I really liked was Murder, She Wrote and Golden Girls, which now I realize is like so kind of independent women,
Yeah.
Yeah.
like really. And then like Inspector Gadget also had
I loved
Penny.
Inspector
She
Gadget. I
was-
loved Penny.
Yeah, Agatha
Yeah.
Christie, a women writer.
Yes,
So I was into
uh-huh.
mysteries.
Very mystery, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. How about you, Michael?
So I watched like the sort of trifecta of Sesame, Electric Company, and Zoom. I remember that was like core TV for me.
What's Zoom?
Oh, you don't know what Zoom is?
I don't know
I
what
remember
Zoom is
Zoom. I
either.
remember
Oh,
Electric
Zoom.
Company.
Zoom was
Yeah.
amazing. Zoom was kind of like GBH, I think, produced.
Yep.
And it was kind of a kid, like it was almost like a stepwise, like getting a little older through those shows, right?
Okay.
And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
like Sesame was for the little kids.
Yeah.
Electric Company was next, and then Zoom was a little bit more broad. It had like a cool science segment. It had a segment called the Bloodhound Gang, where teenager detectives.
that.
No, that's
Yeah,
3 to 1
yeah.
Contact.
Oh, did I say Zoom? Not
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Zoom. I confused. So I really watched all 4 of them, but now I don't know. I'd have
Because
to go
those
back.
I
three
never watched
actually
Zoom.
came on one after the other.
They did.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
did. You could just sit
Yeah.
down and watch,
Yeah.
as one
Just go
does
right through it.
today.
Yeah.
But 3-2-1 Contact was awesome.
Yes.
Totally.
Yeah.
I the Bloodhound Gang, of course. Also, do you all remember that there was like a light and sound kind of like a sciencey thing where they set up the Kiss concert? There was a whole
Oh, no.
great segment.
No.
So I was introduced to like Kiss at an early age.
From Zoom?
From 3-2-1 Contact.
No
Perfect.
way.
Yeah.
Oh,
my
It was
God.
very cool.
I
So-
loved Electric Company.
Electric Company had greatness. And it also was I worked on it. Like it relaunched with like Mos Def and Common.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
And-
no way.
Yeah, like
I
beatboxers.
think
It was
I
really
did see
good.
that. I
Yeah.
did see that on
was super
YouTube or
good.
something.
Yeah.
Wow. Those are amazing. And that's a nice little walk down memory lane there.
Yeah.
Even if our brains have
Little broken.
created some
Yeah,
strange.
fake memories.
Well, wonder if you guys just could talk a little bit about, what is happening in children's media that's sort of driving your work today? Like, how are the different trends and the different movements and the way we encounter media, the kinds of media that young people engage with? What are some of those questions that are really driving the production and also the kind of research of that work for you each?
There's so much going on in the field right now. So it's a pretty exciting time. It feels like a second start of Sesame in some respects, that a lot of the similar things that were happening in 69 are now happening now with like AI, and there was an anxiety about TV in 69, and there's an anxiety about AI and screens and tech and parenting and caregiving and schools and tech and data privacy. And there's just so much similar where's this goingness.
Like hyper panics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's also, so much going on in the world that needs help and
Yeah.
education and coming out of COVID and mental health stuff. Like there's just so much fertile greatness in some ways because there are so many problems. My work, I always try and move towards like play and connection. I'm really motivated by work that breaks the like one kid, one screen
Yeah.
isolation, and how can we use screens to bring people together or make people feel close. I'm also really interested in like tangible play, and a lot of the research is about old play patterns and traditional play, and how can we use what we know is nourishing about that stuff so to bring and the motivation and what kids like about and find appealing about technology. How can we kind of merge those two? So I do a lot of things that have to do with like augmented reality and letter blocks, or just like kind of fusing those two things, like the old play patterns that we know are enriching for literacy or for social play or empathy with the new tech that's coming through.
See, this is a perfect setup for me to talk too, because I run the Joan Ganz Cooney Center at Sesame. So we're of Sesame. We're named after Joan, who started Sesame Street and Children's Television Workshop in the 1960s with her co-founder Lloyd Morissette. What we get to do is basically translate all of the ideas that Emily was just sharing, that the values and the methods that drive Sesame, and try to bridge that, take 50-something years of innovative practice out into the wider world outside of Sesame, and figure out ways to make that seem not totally too far afield from what today's tech and media producers do for kids, right? That like, if you're not Sesame, how do you get oriented in that way, and what are the things you can pick up and do that might be something we just kind of already do because we have inherited this history. But like per what Emily said too, that the moment, it constantly challenges that notion of, like, in 1966 TVs were in 95% of homes. So today's emerging media is so different now, and so pervasive and fragmented in your pocket, and so how do you ask those same questions? It's a really fun and interesting challenge. So there's so much like opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, I am thinking about that a lot, about how back in the day it was really like television that mobilized a lot of our watching and our engagement with media. And I think about like my niece who's 8 and my nephew who's 5, and their engagement with media is very, very different, right? So I'm wondering if, as a follow-up, you could talk a little bit about like what's different in the landscape, how are children kind of encountering this media now, and what should we be paying attention to as we're thinking about that?
It's interesting that you mentioned those different the age difference, right? It's a small age difference, but it's a really big developmental difference.
Totally.
And it's I also think of how it's not just kids, we kind of know what the natural progression of child development is, but then 5-year-olds today and 5-year-olds of several years from now probably have different media experiences. And so what are the patterns and what are the experiences that or their orientations to media, or the things they take away? Like, how will that be different in these new ways of interacting? We're all imagining a future when we're not holding devices in our hand, but are just like, I love it, like when you go into like you're with a kid who goes into a room and just shouts out a question expecting it to be answered because they're used to having somebody's listening and waiting to be at their beck and call. So that kind of like the stuff that Emily and her team do about sort of imaginings for even technologies that aren't quite here yet, I think are super cool.
I have been a producer of stuff for the TV show, so like animation and live action animation mix. And I'm experienced designer, and I think the big difference is what was happening when it was just TV, or when you're just working on TV, is that the context is assumed. Like, you're basically going to be watching TV, and it's probably at home, right? You didn't have to think of, you're designing a thing rather than experience. Now, almost all of the decisions you make are based on what's the context of who's there, where are they, what's the device.
How much time do you have?
Yeah, and that slipperiness of like, we're designing for like everything from 1 second to 3 hours. Yeah. Like, and also trying to get you from one thing to the next. So like, maybe we just want you something about empathy, and then later, like 2 days later, you're playing with your stuffed animal, and can it come through? So like, it's not even adjacent.
Yeah, that's such a great point, because I like that point about how when you're watching TV, you just assume it's going to take place in a kind of a specific space. You could kind of imagine it. You could imagine the people
in the early
around
70s.
it.
Yeah. Now it's
but
a little
you
different.
Can't. No. Yeah, like I could be eating chicken wings at Buffalo Wild Wings and watching it on
Sesame
my iPad.
Or in a plane, or like your car broke down. Or someone's having a tantrum.
It's like a Mad Libs story.
Where are you?
It probably is.
Yeah.
But what's interesting there too is that, I mean, like, some of the earliest work that came out of the Joan Ganz Cooney Center was around kind of co-viewing, right? Which was actually breaking the assumption of what people thought TV viewing might be like, and recognizing that it was more of a communal experience than just an individual. And so it's kind of fascinating to talk about how, like, we could assume certain context for viewing, but your organization never really has made that assumption. You've always tied together the things that are produced and made to research about what's actually happening in those homes and spaces. So you're still doing that, right? It's just
totally.
bringing it up to date in a new way.
Yep.
But how you achieve, like, if co-viewing as originally conceived, like on a couch or whatever, is no longer as likely, how do you get there? Or what are the specific kinds of experiences, interactions you want with the current format of things? Like you said, you want people to feel connected, to feel together. Like how do we get there?
And adults to get back to play. I mean, the human brain evolved to learn through social interaction, and it's somewhat arbitrary that kids are just like spending a lot of time. Like if you're 8, you spend a lot of time with 8-year-olds. Like I think in some ways, any kind of mixed age play is super important.
Yeah.
And harder and harder to find sometimes.
Yeah.
A lot of my work focuses on kind of daily life. So this idea that parenting is like relentless and heartbreaking and a slog, and your kid's making an X on the ground and you have to get home. And like, is there a game for that? And what's the goal there? So the goal is to not have a game for it later. Like you can teach a grown-up how to be more playful and get play to be the thing that solves and brings you closer to your kid or solves your problems in daily life, like toothbrushing or shoes or bedtime or anything.
Is there a resource called Is There a Game for That?
No, we made this game. It's called Sesame Street Family Play. It's an app for parents. The design is just gorgeous. It's very graphic and beautiful and fun and slick and playful. But you start by saying where you are. So you could be anywhere. You could be at a restaurant. You could be in the tub. You could be on an airplane, you could be on a park bench, and it's like a system of just kind of drilling down and figuring out where you are. Then you say who's with you. You could be alone, you could be with one kid, you could be with like 35 kids. And then there's some questions about like context, like do you have sugar packets? Do you have a barf bag? Do you have 3 bars of soap?
Well,
Do you
I always have a
bars
barf
of
bag,
soap?
I mean.
From the airplane. There's so many good ones in the airplane. And then it's like, I have a game for you. And the Muppet suggests the game. So it's just basically this like dynamic database of,
Yeah.
And like, I've used it when the car broke down. I've used it with my kid on the X on the sidewalk 10 blocks from home. And, and one of our favorite things is that we got like a horrible review that's our favorite review, which is like, this is not what you think it is. It's just play for grown-ups. But it did like fix my problem or whatever. And there's just hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of games, and they all reconfigure, and it's like super dynamic. And then ideally you don't even need to do that anymore because you're thinking up games in your own head.
You start to see the world in a different way.
So we're coaching these parents to, I don't know.
It is play
Get yourself through the day. Get yourself through the day.
Did anybody assess the impact on parents, like social emotional experience of?
No, but for me it was strong. Help me.
End of one.
No, I'm sure there's lots.
It definitely reminds me of 2 things. It reminds me of either like an episode of The Office or something where it's just like people that are bored in an office are trying to figure out how to make up a game. And it also reminds me of what cocktail can I make?
Given this random stuff.
The Muppet version of that.
Yeah. It's like I'm making lemonade out of absurd stuff.
Yeah. What about, so you were talking a lot about sort of the new technologies and the ways in which we're thinking differently about how screens can contribute to collaboration and social interaction. I'm wondering if there's anything from kind of the old days of how you thought about Sesame or how Sesame was produced or how Sesame was kind of encountered by young people or maybe just children's programming more broadly. Is there anything from kind of those previous eras of children's media that you kind of miss or would like to kind of bring back into the way in which we all engage?
It's really hard to find slow and like soulful and sweetness stuff. There is so much out there, but it's not as easy to find. Like, I think we knew, like, Mr. Rogers, if your kid was just, like, in a frazzle zone, like, you could put it on and it would be pretty calming. And I think it's out there. Like, there's such incredible work out there, but it's just harder for it to get noticed or chosen by kids. It's in a lot of competition.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that because I think even as an adult, I find that my attention span has greatly diminished. And I realized, like, I think I was telling you this, that it's so much harder for me to watch a movie now because I'm like, oh, I'll watch this 20-minute episode, or I'll watch 10 episodes of this season. That's probably going to be 10 hours of my life, but I can't sit through like a 1.5-hour movie. And so there's like something strange about that dynamic. And I also do think that there's something that I miss in that process of like what you're saying, like the moving, soulful kinds of things.
There's a lot of like snarky, frazzled, fast, quippy.
Fast,
Or, you know,
because that's the market.
Somewhat
right
meaningless
now.
at the end of it all. But
but
there is so much good stuff, and it's just like even I'm fairly deeply in this topic, and it takes me a lot to find it.
There's probably a reason that Bob Ross became like all the rage for Gen Z, right? Is they that sort of slowness, that calmness is actually really desirable.
Yeah, I think good examples are Daniel Tiger, Avatar. I literally adore a program that we made that I think is so undervalued called Ghostwriter. It's the reboot.
Oh, yeah,
it's on
yeah,
Apple TV right now. It is incredible. Like, it's such a good show. Babysitter's Club, I think, is another one.
I love that. We love that.
We did an episode on Babysitter's Club.
I know. Check
that
it
one
out.
is gold.
Yeah.
That show is terrific.
I will add, because you talked about Ghosts, I love City of Ghosts, which is this animated show on Netflix. It was one season. It was like 6 episodes. And it's basically these kids that are like modern day Ghostbusters. They're like a ghost club, but then they go and they don't necessarily destroy ghosts. They like make friends with them and conversations with them. And they do it to think about like gentrification in LA. It's like such a well done, like, oh my God, they're like talking about a real social issue, but then they're doing it with this like ghost framing that I think is just very appealing to adults and kids, and it's very sweet, and it just makes you think. Like, after I finished an episode, I'm like, I have lots of questions now. You know. So.
But you just said it appeals to adults and kids.
Yeah.
And it makes you think. I think that so much of today's media is none of those things, right? That there's so much of kids media that I see now. I mean, my own children are older and effectively not in any sort of kids zone. But if you compare like Sesame early episodes, right, that to today, the pace is so slow, the skits are so long, right? And it was normal then, and that attention spans and ability to kind of like focus was just different, right? And so now the sort of I don't know, like space race to capture more time, more eyeballs is so like fine-tuned to what's possible in this very competitive space. You know, you have to compete in the kids media space, you have to compete against everything, right? YouTube clips themselves are named by duration, so that a parent, they're imagining the parent is like queuing something up in YouTube for their kid, and they're like, oh, 30 minutes or 60 minutes. I need 60 minutes because I'm going to take a shower and make a meal. And so they just know that that's going to happen. Right? And so like it's very much like instrumental for some other purpose that's not enriching the child necessarily. It's more like you've glued like a media experience into the head of the kid for a period of time. And it's very hypnotic. So it's just a different thing, right? And it's not what Emily was describing as this slow and meaningful experience where thoughts are happening, questions, things that might imply something you would go off and do separately from TV. There is no, like Joan herself would say, the most interesting thing that happens in a Sesame Street experience is when the TV gets turned off. What happens? What does the kid do, or what is the conversation they have with their family or caregiver?
Yeah, I think about that designing all the time. Actually, that's
like
a really good way of
aftermath
designing.
of
what's
watching.
the goal?
Yeah. I mean, I think the fact that you take children as a serious audience is
not just as
different.
consumers.
Yeah,
I mean,
not just as consumers, but
huge.
a serious audience, right? A serious like intellectual that wants to think about these ideas, that wants to think about empathy, that wants to think about the social conditions that are happening, right? Like, I think that is like mind-blowing for some people, which I think is really interesting. And I think back to like even something like Sesame Street, how children and adults kind of turn to it in moments of trauma or difficulty, right? Like I think about how during the pandemic, this resurgence of Sesame Street clips kind of got us through it, right? Or, post pandemic, and we like are emerging, and for some reason that kind of helps us. Or the election, right? And how Sesame Street kind of finds a place again. Like, I'm just wondering, like, why do you think that Sesame Street has this thing that returns to the ecosystem when it's like trying to think about these ideas of well-being or these ideas of trauma or difficulty, why it still provides a space for us to think through those things. Like, what is the secret sauce? What is the magic?
I think it's this idea of belonging and like the sweetness. And again, it's that little bit of pacing, like nothing's going too fast. Everything's coming at the right time. It's all going to be, we're all going to get through these crazy hard things.
Yeah.
And, you know, they're unidimensional on some level, right? They amplify their one quality, hunger and craziness or grouchiness or nerdiness or funny or naiveness. And there's something soothing and understandable about that.
Yeah.
But this idea of belonging, I think, matters. Like, I think that makes people really comfortable and adults feel they still belong.
Yeah, I mean, it's not called the Muppets, right? That was a thing, but it's called Sesame Street. The name of it's a place where people get to kind of be and belong and interact together. I mean, that kind of community piece, I feel like, feels so core to even the name of the show, let alone.
And a lot of what was going on in the world was like a broken belongingness.
Yeah.
Like kids weren't going to school or like this fractured political craziness or, you know, just not being able to go outside and be with your friends or to the playground or whatever. So this feeling of like connection and belonging, I think, is their specialness.
Yeah, and related to that you could go back to something that you know, that's predictable, that feels comfortable, that feels safe.
It's always there.
Yeah.
The neighborhood.
The neighborhood.
I was going to say it's the language of feelings. That where else can you better learn, you know, what it means to feel scared or upset or, you know, anything that doesn't feel good, you know, where it's spoken out loud, it's demonstrated, and you see how people or Muppets cope with those feelings, how they're supported. It normalizes it, you know, and maybe that's happening at home, but maybe it's not. And so if that might be a kid's first exposure to those
I think
things.
you and I are saying the same thing. Belonging is when you feel like you can do everything. You are yours. Yeah. Like you don't have to not feel the hard feelings or whatever. Yeah.
Like, God forbid you could have those big feelings, right? And
I think assumed you will.
And I think sometimes kids are told not to have them, right? And that this is a space where you can kind of mediate and facilitate those feelings.
Yeah.
Or the opposite of media that tries to distract you from the things you're feeling. Because a lot of our attention grabbing moments are taking us away from the moment or from each other.
Yeah.
So what if the media were to recenter you on where you are, how you're feeling, and whom you're with?
Yeah.
And that's actually something that was learned really early on in the Sesame research. Sesame's also undervalued for its like crazy research, evolution skills. It redefined the whole entire field. But one of the things they found early on was that when the kind of curricular information did not align with the highest emotional arc, it was not learned as well as when the emotion was layered
brought into
so they rewrote a lot based on like this idea of affect and affective learning, and we learn things better when we're emotionally invested.
Just that emotions are part of cognition, not a separate thing, right? Which is has been incorrectly understood for many decades.
Well, thank you. I love that. Our last question is, what's poppin'? So we like to think about, this is a podcast on play and pop culture. And one of the things that we like to ask our guests is, what is in the pop culture landscape that is exciting you right now that you want other people to check out? It doesn't have to relate to Sesame Street. You don't have to do All Things Sesame or Murder, She Wrote or Golden Girls, but it could be.
Loyal.
I'm so out of touch with what's current.
It could be
I'm
a
so
book.
old guy.
It could be new to you.
So something you like.
I just saw a trailer for a brand new Star Wars series called
it's called Skeleton Crew.
Skeleton Crew. Oh, I was way
Is that what
off.
you're talking about?
Yeah, Skeleton Crew.
With the kids?
The kids, yeah. So again, how many Star Wars stories can possibly be told at this point? Apparently you can tell a new one, but everybody's kids. And I don't know anything more than what I just told you, but that's pretty awesome. I'm excited for that. Whatever it is. I'll watch it. I'm going to watch it.
Yeah.
For me, I'm still so in the market for looking for that like really hard to find, really hard to make well done thing, which is appeals to a wide swathe of people. So like it works for my little kid, it works for my dad who's over 80. And there's just some gems that when you find them, I think I mentioned Ghostwriter, I think is one. America's Got Talent just totally works. It has a soulfulness and an emotionality that is really just sweet. It's like so bonding for a family.
Yeah.
I adore the writer Stuart Gibbs, who has a bunch of different series for kids, and he doesn't make any of his shows or books into shows at all or movies or anything like that. But the audiobooks are totally great. And my favorite series by far is the Charlie Thorne series, and it's about a girl, a computer programmer girl who is like super smarter than Einstein, but that's all researching like science and physics and chemistry and then her half brother is in the CIA, and it's so awesome. Like my dad loves it, my kids love it. Literally,
So
it's
you
my
guys
favorite
all
book.
read it together.
Yeah,
Oh, that's so
great.
and
great.
we reread it. I've probably read them like hundreds of times.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, that's so great.
Cool. That was awesome. I had such a great time talking to you both. Thank you very much, Emily and Michael, for being here, hanging out with us, and thinking about children's media. That was really enlightening.
Yeah.
Totally
Thank
our
you.
pleasure.
Thank you.
So fun. Thank
It was
you.
so fun.
Pop and Play is produced by Haeny Yoon, Nathan Holbert, Lalitha Vasudevan, Billy Collins, and Joe Rena Ferry at Teachers College, Columbia University with the Digital Futures Institute. This episode was edited by Billy Collins and Adrian Vitullo.
For a transcript and to learn more, visit tc.edu/popandplay. Our music is selections from Leaf Eaters by Poddington Bear, used here under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial License. Blake Danzig and Meyer Clark provided our social media and outreach support. Follow at Pop and Play Pod on Instagram. Thank you to Abu Abdelbagi for support with our website and additional materials.
Do you teach about play and pop culture? Check out our topics collection organized for the classroom. And of course, don't forget to share Pop and Play with a friend or colleague.
And thanks for listening.